All right, hey guys. It's your really tired teacher talking to you now because my sleep schedule is so screwed up thanks to Christmas break. Whatever. I'll deal with it on Monday. But anyways, so we got a huge topic to talk about today. And that's why I've got this on the screen right now. So, all right, brace yourselves. I know you guys hated this about world history. Trust me, I did too when I taught world history. Like, I hate the whole jumping around from the same time period to different regions of the world. I hated that. Like, really, like, why can't you just talk about the history of China, like, chronologically? Like, I just hated the different time periods in world history and how they're taught. But anyways, all right, rant over. Let me go ahead and start complaining about this time period, which I have a love-hate relationship with. Like, seriously, I do. I really do think the Gilded Age is a freaking amazing time period because so much stuff goes on. I mean, but it's also one that I kind of like hate because there's so much stuff going on. Like, seriously. I mean, look at this. Okay, put this into perspective for you guys. We've already talked about two of these regional areas here. We've talked about the Old West and we've talked about the New South. All right. We talked about the New South because of Reconstruction, because of, the violence with the KKK, the Redeemer governments rising, sharecropping, and tenant farming. Also, the restrictions being put in place on the freedmen, literacy tests, grandfather clauses, segregation, the black codes, which led into the Jim Crow laws, and then, of course, putting the cherry on top right there, the court case of Plessy versus Ferguson, which establishes the doctrine of separate but equal. Okay, so that's what's going on in the South. And while that's going on in the South, what we've got going on in the West is what we talked about last time. Culture clashes with the Native Americans out there. We tried the assimilation method with the schools, like the Carlisle School in Pennsylvania. We talked about the Dawes Act, where we're basically telling Native Americans, hey, you want your tribal lands, 160 acres worth, and you got to farm like white people do. Like, see, that's kind of relationship we got with the Native Americans last time. So, speaking of other minorities, yeah, we don't treat them that much better with the Chinese. All right, Chinese came over because of the gold rush. They stuck around because of Transcontinental Railroad, working for the Central Pacific. And, they're hated on by nativists in California and throughout the Southwest and just West in general. And they lobby Congress to push the Chinese Exclusion Act. So, besides the Transcontinental Railroad, like linking the country together and like all this stuff and transforming the nation, we're going to use the railroad to jump into our topic today. But other stuff that goes on out west is your stereotypical like cowboys, cattle drives, outlaws versus the law with, vigilante justice and sheriffs and, just outlaws like Jesse James and Billy the Kid. But we also got gold and silver mining too, which kickstarts our western journey. So really, okay, we've already covered, 2 out of the 5. Not bad. All right. The big freaking chunk, though, comes from the northern cities. And that is what we're talking about today. We are talking about the Gilded Age as we know it. Because, the Gilded Age we're going to use as this big umbrella that goes from 1865 to 1900. But, like I was just talking about right now, the Old West stretches through the same time period and has a distinctly different history than the South, which they divide up into 2 time periods, which is Reconstruction, which goes from 1865 to 1877, and then 1877 and beyond is basically the New South and like Jim Crow era. So, Yeah, northern cities, what we're going to talk about today, makes up a huge crux of this. And, dude, there's a lot going on. Just plain and simple. There's a lot going on. You want to do yourselves a favor? Watch The Men Who Built America. Okay? And that's going to help make sense of this time period. And if you're feeling kind of ambitious and want to like binge watch a show that will help you understand these things, watch Hell on Wheels, because it bridges some of the stuff going on with the South, with the West, with the northern cities, and the Midwest. So, I mean, it transcends the regions, all because Hell on Wheels is basically a show about the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. So, there you go, guys. Hop on Netflix, watch that show. Men Who Built America, I think, is on Amazon Prime, so yeah. Anyways, I might give that as extra credit, so just keep on the lookout. Okay, so getting back to this craziness here of our country doing all kinds of stuff. It's coming of age. I mean, this is the time where America starts to become a badass and starts to like go away from the kids' table pretty much and starts to hang with the big boys. So yeah, this is America transforming into a more modern society. We're gonna transform again like in the in the 1900s, but for now this is when we're gonna see a massive amount of wealth. We're gonna see big business rise and be unregulated. So we're going to concentrate on this second industrial revolution that happens during the Gilded Age and connect it to the market revolution and our first industrial revolution that happened prior to the Civil War. So this first part of the lecture, guys, is going to be focusing on bridging those gaps and talking about that Transcontinental Railroad once again. And then talking about what made America the perfect place for all of this to happen. So that's the first part of our lecture on this time period. The second part of our lecture is going to be going into the logistics of it, because there are so many aspects even in the northern cities. We got to talk about the political aspect, the economic aspect, the cultural aspect. I mean, like I'm saying, a lot of stuff going on. So forgive me if American history is going to be kind of annoying like world history is when we're talking about all of this, but trust me, it's way better than talking about, I know talking about like different time periods in world history like really annoyed you, but really, like, this is actually an interesting time period, and I'm not saying that just because I'm a freaking history nerd. Like, this really is. The more I learn about it, the more I'm like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's kind of like World War One. Like, I was all about like World War II back in the day. Like, yeah, freaking World War II. It's awesome. But then I started learning more about World War One, and I was like, whoa, this is some other level stuff. So that's kind of like how I feel about the Gilded Age compared to other historical time periods in U.S. history. The more I learn about it, the more I'm like, whoa, this is freaking cool. So, all right, guys, let's sit back. Let's dive into this because, yeah, we just got to go in cold turkey. Look, just saying. So let's go ahead and shift gears for a minute, guys, and actually start off the show. So, all right, here's what we got. The rise of industrial America from 1865 to 1900. Holy crap, we got lights now. Okay, you wouldn't believe how much that blew people's minds. Okay, let's jump in. So, yeah, I know, there's a lot on the screen. Let's go with this. All right, so like I was telling you guys, I mean, America is transforming like crazy. Once the Civil War is done, all of this gets kicked into high gear. It was starting to already kind of come to the surface. We were starting to see big business form during the market revolution and the first industrial revolution, but it is in part kind of because of the Civil War that we are totally developing into an urban nation, and our economy is like really growing. So, like I said, it's a perfect storm here in America for just the rise of big business and the transforming of the country at this time. So we are going to emerge as the largest economy in the world because we were basically producing everything. Like, our industrial might at this time was just insane. So, like I said, we'll go into that more in depth as we move on. So yeah, this second industrial revolution is what I was basically talking about. We're going to have like a lot of freaking inventions occur during this time period, which helps to foster this in further growth of our country, whether it be through farming, through building up of cities, transportation, communication, you name it, like all the above. The railroad is what's going to drive the show here. Like, seriously. The Transcontinental Railroad is going to be the link across the country, both physically and like metaphorically. Like, really, the railroad, the Transcontinental Railroad, definitely is key to understanding this time period. So we're also kind of freaking out with what's going out west. Do you guys remember Frederick Jackson Turner from last time saying, "Hey, we got no more frontier"? Yeah. We're gonna see imperialism at the same time too, so you brace yourselves, guys. Like, don't worry, I got you. We're gonna cover domestic policy first, which means what happens in-house in the country. Then we're gonna dive into foreign policy, because I know your book says, oh yeah, let's go from industrial America to like the West and then to like imperialism. No. Your book gets it wrong this time. They're going to confuse the hell out of you. So we're going to jump around with chapters, because seriously, if we address it as domestic policy first and then jump into foreign policy with imperialism and use that to springboard into World War I, you'll thank me for that. Like, really. I'm telling you guys, I got you. So, all right, moving on. We already talked about Reconstruction, Jim Crow, New South, and the Redeemer governments that rise up to power because, well, people just don't give a crap about Reconstruction anymore. It loses funding, and the political influence is waning on that. So, the Gilded Age is really driven by these entrepreneurs, these captains of industry, or rather, robber barons. They've got two faces, guys. So they're going to control these big corporations, but they're also going to like dominate bad stuff too, like politics, and just, it's a freaking mess. But a necessary evil of the time, I suppose. I don't know. It's like we kind of had to go through this to get to like a better time. It's one of those things. All right. And then we're going to talk about some immigration going on, because even though we did already have an influx of the Irish and Germans and Western Europeans, around this time we're going to see Eastern Europeans show up to America. So there's going to be culture clash there, but immigrants are essential for labor to drive this second industrial revolution. So, plus we'll throw in some farmers, okay? The farmer thing we already kind of hinted on with our Western topic, but we're going to come back around to the farmers because they help jumpstart what's known as the Progressive Era, which, all right, guys, here's another, like, freaking tip from me, okay? When also thinking about the Gilded Age, think of it as the causes. Okay, all the stuff that goes on in the Gilded Age causes what happens afterwards, which is the Progressive Era, where we actually make freaking progress on the problems that the Gilded Age caused. All right, so like I told you guys, stick with it. We will get through this freaking mess and actually make sense out of all of this. So, once again, just reminding you guys what's going on during the time period, both foreign and domestic. But for today, and probably for the next like 2 lectures, because I'm telling you, it's a freaking huge topic, we're going to focus on this part, the second wave of immigration, second industrial revolution, and Gilded Age. So, like I said, guys, let's strap in and enjoy the ride here, because, dude, it's a roller coaster. So, okay, let's review, all right? Start off slow. Let's review. So, these are inventions that we encountered during our first industrial revolution and, market revolution, okay? The steam press, the telegraph, the locomotive, the steamboat, the rise of the factory system. So, this shows those inventions, right? All right, so more about these inventions. We also had stuff that revolutionized farming, which we got the steel plow, the mechanical reaper. The rotary press and the telegraph will help with communication. The rotary press making it a hell of a lot easier to print out stuff like newspapers and books, and during this time period we see magazines. So your print media gets a kickstart. On the farm, we also have, besides the steel plow and the mechanical reaper, we got the cotton gin, which transforms the southern economy. And essentially before the Civil War, cotton was freaking king. And the southern economy greatly benefited from this invention. So what helps transform the North is going to be the trains and the sewing machine, along with the spinning jenny and stuff for textile mills, like the Lowell mill that we had talked about before when we covered the first industrial revolution. So all of this is going to help aid the second industrial revolution. So thinking back again, remember the steam locomotive with John Stevens is going to help with transportation, right? At first, railroads were regional lines, and then with the Transcontinental Railroad and the rise of big business with the railroads, they're going to become more national. So just keep that in mind. But what's going to help transform the West, we know, is the mechanical reaper, developed by Cyrus McCormick at the age of freaking 22. Good God, man, I wasn't even graduated from college at 22. Oh, yeah. The moment where you feel kind of unaccomplished. Okay, yeah, anyways. The mechanical reaper transforms the West. It's going to make it a lot easier to harvest your crops, as you could see from this guy riding his mechanical reaper. So a lot more people are going to, at first, go to the farms, but during the second industrial revolution, the Gilded Age, we have the shift towards the cities. Okay, another farm invention, remember, was the steel plow, developed by John Deere, which is still into farming equipment. I mean, you guys know the brand, really. So to farm the West, we had to use a steel plow because the soil wasn't that great. So this invention here is going to freaking transform the West, as well as barbed wire, which we had talked about during our last conversation with the West, all right, in that lecture. So moving on, let's go to communication. We got the telegraph, and we know we could transmit messages a lot faster to different parts of the country, so long as they had the telegraph poles in place. I mean, this revolutionized communication, for real. I mean, it used to take a hell of a long time to get a letter across the country, but now you could send a message and it could be transmitted in a matter of minutes. So yeah, amazing invention by Samuel Morse here. And then with the rotary printing press, like we said, we could print out multiple copies of newspapers, magazines, books, whatever was printed. It could be done very fast and efficiently. So news is going to travel through both media. And I mean, really, this is going to help, you know, bring about new ideas to the country, to different parts of the country. So there we go. That's our communication that we've worked on during the first industrial revolution and the market revolution. Now let's go ahead and talk about what transforms the North. With the textile mills, we obviously need the sewing machine to produce clothing, right? So Elias Howe was like the first dude and came up with the sewing machine, but the one who perfects it and makes it successful is Isaac Singer. And Singer sewing machines, guys, I mean, they're still a thing. It's still like the best freaking brand for sewing machines. Come on, guys. Your grandmas have this. They do. You probably played with it when you were young, you know, with the foot pedal. Yeah, we're talking this. So all of these things, like we said, are going to help the country grow. Another thing that helps the country grow, well, westward expansion and movement, and the new farming machinery that comes about because of these new inventions. Farming of the West, thanks to stuff like the Homestead Act, and scientific research that happens at land-grant colleges, thanks to the Morrill Act. So all of this is going to get people moving out west, and farming and agriculture is going to boom. But of course, at the expense of the environment, right? This is like a genius ad by McCormick for his mechanical reaper, because it's like genius in the sense that it's doing some social commentary too. Because look at this. Here's the caption. What was only a few years ago the grazing ground of the buffalo is now the home of the McCormick mechanical reaper. All right? And look at the poor buffalo. Poor buffalo is like, oh my God, they're like plowing up my food. And look at the caption right under the buffalo. It says, the last of his race. And you see remnants of, you know, a wheel spoke right here from one of the Conestoga wagons that brought people around to the west before the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. So, yeah, I mean, the West is definitely transforming. It is no longer the vast open plains that Lewis and Clark encountered. It is really now being plowed up and stripped of its natural resources, and the buffalo are dying out as a cause of this, and the Native Americans are, of course, suffering as a cause of this as well. So, but the farming boom really does go on throughout the up until 1900. I mean, you could see the number of farms that come across. I mean, yeah, this is a farming revolution here. Lots of acres are being farmed. And all of these inventions we had talked about last time with the West are definitely helping farmers, well, farm, okay? So, really, I mean, people are benefiting from these inventions. You know, farm machinery is on the rise. There's a lot of money being spent on farm machinery. And the United States is going to become a leading exporter of agricultural machinery. And here, again, another freaking genius ad by McCormick. You could see how this kind of plays into even imperialism when you think about it. Because look, I mean, this looks like this is like, what, probably like closer to India or, you know, some other area in that part of the world. We can see that, you know, the mechanical reaper is being like transported there. And dude, this is freaking genius for imperialism, because look at the caption here, the McCormick, seeking new fields to conquer. Whoa. Dude, whoever was coming up with McCormick's ads back then, hell yeah. Social commentary 100%. Like I said, genius ads here. So, oh yeah, here's another one. Treading out the grain in Oriental style. Imperialism. All right, imperialism. So, now Now, because we do have these new inventions, it's going to cut the labor time down pretty much, because farmers are utilizing this new machinery. So the number of hours used to, like, you know, do, well, farm stuff is going to drop for the most part. But then again, farmers are going to farm. They buy up more acreage and, yeah, produce more agricultural products. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. They're going to cause their own financial strife, like for real. So some of the scientific inventions that we will eventually see is stuff coming out from George Washington Carver. He's going to be at the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. And so he develops ways, you know, different uses for like soybeans, peanuts, sweet potatoes, and whatnot. But basically the outcome of the scientific research from these colleges here, like Texas A&M, and those are my freaking dogs. Hold on, guys. They are being annoying. All right, so where were we? We were talking about land-grant colleges, right, and agricultural development. So, yeah, all the stuff coming out from the land-grant colleges is definitely going to help out the Western farmer, but the farmer is not only a victim of their own circumstance because they bought this big machinery, expensive machinery to farm, they're also being taken advantage of by the wealthy northern industrialists, particular bankers out north, and by the railroads, and them charging whatever rates that they want to ship these crops out east. So that's why I say, like with the farmers, we're going to come swinging back around to them when we're done talking about the Gilded Age experience in northern cities, because the farmers are going to be part of the group that starts up a resistance to the corruption of big business. All right, so pretty much, yeah, the farmers are going to be part of the group to go ahead and kickstart the resistance to this corruption being brought about by wealthy industrialists. So that's why we're swinging back around again to them. And yeah, let's go ahead and cover the railroads now, because they are important. So, like we said, early American trains are going to be regional lines at first. So it's not until after the Civil War, when the Transcontinental Railroad is developed in the late 1860s into the 1870s, we're going to see a rise in the amount of tracks being laid across the country. So, subsequently, the railroad is our first big business. And it's hella important because, much like the canals and the steamboats and all that stuff, the turnpikes helped transform the country back during the Market Revolution and First Industrial Revolution, the railroads are really going to lead the show during this Second Industrial Revolution and the Gilded Age, because they're helping to transport these raw materials from out west, like, you know, copper and, you know, gold and silver and whatnot, and even raw materials found back east, like coal and iron, which helped produce steel. So, it's this guy right here, Cornelius Vanderbilt. They call him the Commodore because this guy is an interesting guy. All right. He essentially gets freaking wealthy off of the steamboats during the Market Revolution and First Industrial Revolution. And then the dude has the foresight to jump into the railroad industry right as it is kicking off around the time of the Civil War, and just gets hella rich off of railroads, you know, just in time for the Second Industrial Revolution and the Gilded Age. So this guy's going to be one of the wealthiest men in America ever. Okay? Ever. we're going to look at a list right now, and you guys will be surprised how many Gilded Age people are on this list. And they're not getting off of it because these people were freaking rich. So, I will talk a little bit more about Vanderbilt right now when we get into our captains of industry and robber barons section. But all right, we're going to have new inventions help out the railroads too, because believe it or not, guys, like actually the railroad didn't have any brakes back in the day. We had to like slow down just to stop. So we mentioned this talking about the railroads in our lecture on the West, but just bringing it back up again. Yeah, we're going to select different railroad track gauges, standardize like the different tracks, and time zones. Time zones are a thing now. Steel rails over iron rails because they're more durable and can last a lot longer, they're stronger. And people like George Westinghouse are going to create the automatic air brakes, which, yeah, we have brakes now on trains. And we are also, let's see, here's George Westinghouse, and these are the gauges that we're talking about on that earlier slide, and the time zones. All right. So there's another invention that occurs at this time, which is going to help transform the railroads and transportation, and it's the sleeping car, developed by George Pullman. Again, another one of these freaking rich guys of the Gilded Age. He develops a sleeping car, which is basically like what you guys see with Harry Potter, like that kind of stuff. Same freaking deal, okay? These are your standard like dining cars, actual sleeping cars where you got beds in them. The rich people had like super like pimped out ones where it was basically like a mini house in there that they attached to their train. Yeah, this is what we got. George Pullman is hooking up the railroads with select cars to put on them. So, what helped kickstart the Transcontinental Railroad, like we talked about before? The Pacific Railway Act. So, 1862 to 1864, the government is going to say, hey, Union Pacific, Central Pacific, go ahead and lay down some tracks. Let's create the Transcontinental Railroad and link the country together. And how we're going to pay you? For every mile of track, you get 20 sections of public land. So, of course, the railroads, being corrupt as they were back then, are going to be like, yeah, let's curve the hell out of the track. We talked about this last time. We also talked about last time how the railroads do affect Native Americans. I mean, the railroads hunted the buffalo to near extinction, drove the Native Americans out of their land, and yeah, this was the beginning of the end for Native American populations out west. And the Chinese. The Chinese were greatly mistreated by the railroads. I mean, they were sent to do the most dangerous jobs, like handle the nitroglycerin to blow up the mountainside. Yeah. Lots of accidents. I mean, avalanches, cave-ins, you name it. There's a lot of people who got hurt and died on the Central Pacific side when building the Transcontinental Railroad. On the Union Pacific side, we've got the Irish, we've got ex-Confederate soldiers, we have also the freedmen. So yeah, we got a whole mix of people on the Union Pacific side. So, like we were saying, the Chinese laborers, I mean, they had the most difficult jobs, and there's going to be a lot of them dying. Between this time period, 1865-1866, 3,000 are going to die because of the mountainside blasts and whatnot, and the snow and just everything. 3,000 workers work on it, 1,200 die. There we go. That's a lot of people. So, once again, this is completely constructed by 1869. They meet at Promontory Mountain in Utah. And Attributing to this time period and the corruption of such, they did such a bad job constructing this railroad that the whole thing needed to be completed again 15 years later. Yeah, corruption. Total corruption with the Central Pacific and the Union Pacific, which we are going to talk about today. So, once again, the impact of the railroads, it connects east and west. We can ship goods faster and cheaper across the country. You know, Western products, agricultural products, and natural resources can make it to the Eastern factories and to the populations back east to be consumed or turned into other products. People can move out west a lot easier now too because, well, railroad, right? They'll now have to like rough it through like the Oregon Trail anymore. And that's going to help the West get populated and settled. So, okay guys, I know we took forever reviewing, but that reviewing needed to happen, like for real, because we need to understand all of this. All right? Like I said, guys, this time period is a beast, and I want to make sure you understand all aspects of it because, yeah, Gilded Age be tough. So, okay, what we're going to talk about right now is the abundant natural resources and the talented entrepreneurs. Okay, we're gonna tackle those two. So, the Industrial Revolution that happens at this time period. Okay, we're gonna have the abundance of natural raw resources and materials thanks to the Transcontinental Railroad and people moving out west. We get to take advantage of that. So, we also have a large pool of workers thanks to immigration. It just happened to work out at this time. The Irish, kickstarted this, but now we also have Eastern Europeans as well. They're going to provide the labor source. So, we also have a lot of money flowing at this time. People are investing in these different industries developing. Talented entrepreneurs are taking the risk and putting these ideas into practice and being successful with them. And this is fostered by government policies that basically let big business do whatever the hell it wanted. Little to no regulation whatsoever. Which, like we were talking about, is a double-edged sword. Because, yeah, it helps business grow, but unchecked business really treats their workers really badly, and they take advantage of the government and the system. And then we got technology and innovations, which we're going to talk about towards the tail end of this. But that national market, though, like we said, the railroad kickstarts it all. And because of the population growth thanks to immigration, we do have a national market established for all of these factory-made goods and agricultural products coming out of the West. So, where are these natural resources? Well, if you look at maps of the country, you could see that there are pockets of like iron and coal and oil and whatnot just dotting the country pretty much. We are rich in natural resources. So new industries are going to grow. The steel manufacturing industry with Carnegie, electrical power eventually with Edison and with JP Morgan and Tesla and Westinghouse in their current wars. We're also going to see petroleum refinery establishing, Rockefeller taking charge of that. And, well, yeah, I mean, this is what we got, okay? So, how we compare to the rest of the world at this time, though, take a look at this. I mean, look, we are growing completely in this time period. From 1870 to 1913, which is right at the onset of World War I. Look at that. We have become the industrial powerhouse of the world. So, Cities are going to grow as a result because that's where the factories are. And pretty much since business was unchecked, yeah, the working conditions are going to be safe and unregulated. And like we said, the Gilded Age has the problems. The Progressive Era is going to fix these problems. So, this is just a little preview for you guys. But really, those natural resources that we're talking about, I mean, that's really what's going to like help the factory system grow and big business. So, we also have a lot of like rivers back east, which helps to provide the steam power for those factories. And out west, we got a whole bunch of arable land, so we can sustain ourselves through agriculture. So really, we are like the perfect place to be in the world at that time. So, I mean, even with coal, which is a main source of fueling back then for like the steam engines and such, look at us. I mean, by the onset of World War I, we are the world's leading producer of coal. And we have that readily available resource of labor. You can see here, the population increase from 1865 to 1900 really helps our country grow. There's so many people coming in. The big cities, I mean, see a lot of people coming in at this time. And where they're going around the world, well, they're coming to America because we've got the factory jobs readily available. So that is pretty much our review for the Gilded Age. I'm going to cut it off here, and we're going to talk about in lecture number 2 right now, the Gilded Age itself, how it got its name, these wealthy entrepreneurs, how they stack up against rich people now in America, and more of the industrial aspects of the Gilded Age. So, all right, guys, part 2 coming up.